I have a doozy of an episode for you guys today, where an anonymous ranger on the search and rescue team, let's call him Ranger X, who in his words shares a few mind-bending cases that he experienced while on the job. We're going to cover some staircases that were found in the middle of the forest, along with some very odd missing person cases. So if you dig this kind of content, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe because I release strange and weird encounters every single day. Hey Donovan, I've been checking out your channel and I like your content. I was never one for the supernatural until my first year on the search and rescue team at a well-known national park. I have some stories that will bend your mind because they bent mine. Everything from strange disappearances to staircases in the woods and just flat out weird experiences altogether. So this happened when I was on the first year on the job. I worked on the search and rescue team, like I said, and we were looking for an 11-year-old girl who had been reported missing by her parents. At the time, this was only my third search and rescue effort. And anytime you hear of a child going missing, it's pretty sad. I've been doing this for 8 years now, and you never become numb to the fact that it's someone's kid. The parents are always devastated, to say the least. Without giving too much away with where I work, because I want to remain anonymous for obvious reasons. I want to keep my job, and the higher-ups really don't like us talking to the media or sharing any exact details about any case. So the family was camping in a remote area of the park. It was the mother, father, teenage daughter, and 11-year-old daughter. They had been at the park for several days and were avid campers and hikers. A real outdoorsy family. In the early morning, the younger daughter was the first to rise and went for a walk while the others were sleeping. She was sleeping in the tent with her sister, and the parents were in another tent right beside them. She told her sister she was going to hang outside until everyone woke up. The other sister really didn't think anything of it at the time. That was the last time that her sister ever spoke to her. When the others got up, they thought she might have been out for a walk, but then they quickly realized that she was nowhere to be found. That's when we got the call from the mother, and we sent the search and rescue team out there to their location. We had canines with us too. We had someone on the team that specialized in missing children. We do find a lot of the children. A lot of them are alive. However, we do find some dead, and there's even a smaller amount that go missing or turn up months or even years later, leaving us all shaking our heads on exactly how it happened. We started at their campsite and made sure the dogs got her scent, and then they started tracking her. We followed them for about a mile when the dogs started going crazy. They led us to the base of this tree, and they were barking up the tree. We look up, and then there in the branches, 35 feet into the air, is this girl's orange jacket that she was wearing. I thought to myself, how in the hell did it get up there? We were all puzzled. We were there for a good while and sent someone up the tree to retrieve her coat and let the dogs get the scent of the coat, but the trail stopped there. It just went cold. The search and effort lasted for a few more weeks until it was downgraded to a limited and continuous mode, which basically means we are no longer actively searching, but we're always on the lookout for every case like this. To this day, that is all we ever found. Now here's where shit gets really crazy. A few months after this search and rescue mission, I'm around the same general area where we were searching. We were at least a few miles deep into the forest from the nearest trail or road. It's not the remotest part of the park, but it's pretty remote. You get the picture. I was doing some training exercises with a buddy of mine, and we come across this staircase in the middle of the forest. I shit you not. It was like it was taken out of somebody's house and dropped right into the middle of the forest. The steps had this runner of a carpet over this lightly stained oak wood and a matching banister and all white spindles. I've heard from other rangers that if you come across a staircase, don't touch it, don't go near it, and definitely do not walk up it. The vet rangers kind of act weird if you even bring it up. Previous to this, I tried to pry and get more information from them because I just found it so fascinating. But all I ever get told is to stay away and just let it be. Well, to hell with all that. I went over and inspected the staircase, and it was clean. I thought to myself, how can this staircase be clean in the middle of the forest? I don't get it. No bugs, no dirt on it, no bird poop, nothing. My buddy and fellow ranger told me we should probably just let it be and don't disturb it. And I told him, come on, man, it's a staircase. And someone just put it here to freak people out. That's it. We both laughed, and I told him, well, let's just walk up a few steps. That's it. We started walking up the staircase when all of a sudden my buddy stops dead in his tracks and says, I don't think this is a good idea. I said, what are you talking about? He then looks at me and says, I've done some research on these things. They can be dangerous if you go too far or touch something you're not supposed to. I was like, really? You got to be kidding me. So I asked him, what do they do? He said, I don't know for sure, but I heard stories of people going missing after coming across one of these staircases. That's when I started getting a little freaked out, because that's when he reminded me that this is when that girl went missing a few months back. I never really put it together until that point. Now, there's not much that freaks me out, but I have to say that freaked me out quite a bit. We got 3 steps up on that staircase, and that was enough for me. I don't know if the staircase had anything to do with that missing girl, but you never know. Maybe she went all the way up and went off into another dimension. I have no idea. I've seen several of these staircases since over my years on the SAR team. However, I stay away now, and I tell the same thing to younger rangers like the vets told me when I first started. Just stay away from them and don't touch them. Now here's a story from another ranger that pretty much blew my mind. I heard this story about a year or 2 after I was on the team from another ranger who is now retired, but he was on a search and rescue mission for a little boy. I believe he was 4 or 5 years old. The parents had 5 or 6 kids, all pretty young, and were having a picnic in the area of the park. One of the kids wandered off for a brief second, and the dad went chasing after him, and he's nowhere to be found. Obviously, the dad and mom are in full panic mode because they just lost their 5-year-old. The SAR team heads out right away and starts looking for this little boy. The dogs got his scent, and then just nothing. The trail leads to absolutely nowhere. They had the scent where the boy had disappeared to, then like 50 feet after that, it just goes cold. The search continued for the rest of that day and into the next day. They searched a several-mile radius from when he went missing, and no clues or signs of the boy. Around 5 p.m. the second day, there is a call into the ranger station where someone reported they found a young child in the woods by himself. Matches the description of the missing boy. Brown hair, red jacket, blue jeans, white shoes. Everything matches. They headed out to see if this was the boy, and sure enough, it's him. Get this. He's 20 miles away from where he went missing. Now, how in the hell does this little boy travel 20 miles in less than 24 hours and not have a single scratch on him? They interviewed the boy, and all he would talk about is the fuzzy man. I'll send in some more stories when I have time, but these are by far the most mind-bending stories that I have. Now, hopefully we hear more from Ranger X, but until we do, here's a few more creepy and odd encounters that people have had in national and state parks. I was with friends hiking in Rocky Mountain State Park. We were fresh out of high school in 2005 and decided to take a big week-long trip before college started. We spent the first few days swimming and fishing, doing normal stuff. We had an older friend that brought some beers, and we sat around a campfire talking about our futures. By day 3, I was feeling very relaxed. However, that day my friends started to pack up their equipment to migrate deeper into the woods. That night while we were out, We decided to continue hiking until we found the first flat space or clearing we could rest at and pitch our tents. Personally, I was not too happy that we left the safer campsite altogether. I was hoping that we would be in one place and just hike from there, but my friend who was leading us was more of a daredevil. The moon was out, but the light was blotted out by the trees. We went out for a night hike with our flashlights, and we came across a shallow cave that appeared to be empty. It was large enough for all 7 of us to settle into, and there were no signs of animals staying there. So my friend decided that this would be the place that we set up our tents. As we were trying to get our tents up by the lantern light, I heard some strange noise coming from the back of the cave. It sounded human, but not completely human. It almost sounded like a mix between a groan and a growl. The pitch was also off, as if it were an animal trying to sound like a person. At this point, all of us got scared and wanted to leave immediately. My friend, who is very experienced with the outdoors, kept trying to explain it away as a bat or some small creature that was hiding. I wanted out of the cave, but he got us to stay, saying that it was safer here than hiking any longer. We would have to wait until morning to find our way back to our original site. Everyone tucked themselves into their tents, but I couldn't go inside mine. I was too busy looking towards the dark back corners of the cave. I walked over slowly with my lantern raised, and that's when I noticed some writings on the wall of the cave. They were in English, but they were written in blood or something similar to it. It was hard to tell because it had been so long since they were written. I took pictures of them with my phone because I wanted to show that we probably weren't as safe as we thought. There could have been an animal from a sacrifice dying in the back of the cave. People may return to do some weird stuff. The writing said things like, "He's coming," and "Get out," and "Help me." Some parts of the wall looked like they had been hit repeatedly by something heavy. There were also scratch marks. On my way to my friend's tent to show him that we weren't safe, I started hearing voices whispering around me, almost as if there were people standing beside me. I stopped in my tracks and turned to look. There, in the corner where the sound had come from, was a pale figure, like a person in a sheet, appearing more and more solid as I watched. And then the shape went from a sheet to a figure of a small child. I realized I was looking at a small glowing boy who couldn't have been older than 7. I froze. The boy looked at me and was silent at first. Then he opened his mouth like he was going to scream, but nothing came out. He jumped at me and I jumped back to avoid him going through me. As he landed on the ground, he began getting sucked through it and screamed, this time audibly with the sound that we had heard before. Then he disappeared into the soil. My friends all poked out of their tents as I was running by shouting. Needless to say, no one believed what I saw, but everyone immediately began packing, and we sat there awake until dawn. Just last year, I was out with my dog hiking, as I usually did on my evenings off. I lived right by the Dutchess Rail Trail in New York State, and that was an easy track for me and my dog when I wasn't interested in going to the mountains. It always felt safer because in the summer it stayed lighter and there were a lot more people out. I didn't realize on this particular night it was going to rain, so it was just my dog and I making the trek alone. I didn't feel nervous at first because we were able to see cars here and there, but as we got away from the Hudson River view and deeper on the trail, I was feeling a little unsettled, like something was going to jump out at us. Somewhere along the way, my dog began getting really uneasy. He started to jump around like he smelled something. I had never known my dog to be like that outside. He was very well trained, but that day he suddenly became unstable. My nerves were on edge at that point. The rain began and I was itching for the closest exit off the trail. I would have to figure out how to get home, but I was convinced something was wrong. We came around a bend where the trail looked like it had a staircase down to the main road. I got excited, but then my dog took off, pulling the leash from my hand, and ran past the stairs into some brush along the side of the pavement. That's when I saw it. Laying there in the middle of the trail, facing away from me, so all I could see was its backside, was a creature that I had never seen before. I could only think it had to be a dog or a coyote at first before it showed its true size. When my dog got to it, the creature turned and snapped at him, scaring him back towards me. Then it began to pull itself up to standing. What looked like it should have stopped at all fours kept going until it was at least 8 feet in the air on its hind legs. It took one step forward and growled loudly at me through the rain. I noticed in the darkening evening light that its leg looked injured. It had long brown hair and very broad shoulders. My first thought was it looked like a werewolf because of its height, hair, and stature, but it had very little human qualities, and I didn't believe that this thing changed into anything. I thought it was the exact monster it was. Noticing its injury, I felt bolder, so I headed closer to it by a few steps to get a closer look. It limped forward and growled again, almost like it was warning me to back away. I grabbed my dog's leash and we did just that, never taking my eyes off this creature. I noticed as I looked into its eyes, they were red, and its face had cuts and matted fur all over it. As I stepped back more, it crouched down on all fours, exposing its long torso, and I could see it had a bitten up rat tail hanging from its back. It let out one more growl, still not taking its eyes off me, and began limping in the opposite direction. I stayed there soaked and standing still until it was completely out of sight, and then ran down those steps to the street to the nearest gas station. When I walked in, the attendant asked if I was okay. I didn't want to tell him what I saw, so I just asked him if I could stay in the station until I called a cab. As I waited, we heard another howl. I jumped and the attendant laughed. He asked me if I thought I saw it too. I pretended I didn't know what he was talking about, but apparently there had been other people who said they saw this creature on the trail. The attendant just smiled and assured me that it would find its way back to the mountains again. I never walked that trail or went to that gas station again.